Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Communiqué IIT Kharagpur, we are delighted to welcome you to the third day of Internship Training Week. I am Dhruv Gehlot, and alongside Prithvik Premkumar Shanmuga, I will be hosting today's panel discussion. Today, we focus on one of the most sought-after career paths, consulting. We aim to provide valuable insights and tips to help you navigate this field successfully. We hope this discussion answers your questions and equips you with essential knowledge. At the end of the discussion, we will hold a Q&A session to address any remaining queries.
Today, we have an extremely talented set of panelists who have backed internships in some of the most highly reputed companies. I take immense pleasure in introducing them to you. Our first panelist of the day is Mr. Manas Mohan Sharma, who is currently interning at McKinsey and Company. Manas, would you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Right. So Manas Sharma, this side, I'm studying manufacturing science and engineering with a specialization in financial engineering. I'm a dual degree student. Just finished my fourth year, moving into my fifth year. And yes, I'm currently interning at McKinsey and Co. Yeah, that's it. I think that's a brief introduction that works for now.
Thank you, Manas. Our next panelist is Mr. Orkodeep Mandvi, who has just managed to bag an internship at Boston Consulting Group. Orkodeep, please introduce yourself.
Hey, thank you, Prithvik. Hi, everyone. This is Orkodeep Mandal. I'm also a pre-final year student. I mean, not a pre-final year student anymore now that the results are out. I am from the Department of Electrical Engineering and pursuing a master's degree in financial engineering. And yes, I am currently interning at the Boston Consulting Group. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Orkodeep.
Before diving into exciting discussions and presentations, I'd like to congratulate our panelists for landing such prestigious internships. Your achievements are truly inspiring. So, starting with the discussion. When was it that you explored and decided that you wanted to pursue consulting as your career path? Manas, would you like to begin?
Yeah, I mean, in the back of my mind, I had always aspired people who got into consulting. So I think from induction, that thought was there because I actually respected some of the seniors in college and they got into consulting. So I think the inception of getting into consulting came from there. And I could relate a lot with respect to the personality that I have. I'm really outgoing and all. And I think the work that you do there requires for you to be a little bit outgoing, and it involves obviously problem solving. I had a little bit of business acumen there, and I could identify it in the early stages because I was also a part of one DC consulting. And yeah, so the inception came from the seniors, but it also aligned with the personality that I have and the interests that I have. So in my second year itself, I was very keen on exploring this particular domain of consulting. So I think that is how I started.
Okay. And Orgodeep?
Yeah, so the standard KGP way, you put your hand in each and every sector and find out what's your niche. So yeah, just like probably most of the people here, I started trying out different profiles from my very first year. And by the time I was in my second year, I had shortlisted a few things which probably I can be good at. That being said, I had major inclinations towards consulting and the qualitative aspect of finance. Talking about consulting, I mean, as Manas also said, it requires someone with a lot of rigor, someone who would like to innovate, solve problems. And I felt that was something really intriguing. Uh, Talking about myself, see, what I felt differentiates consulting from probably most of the other parts of job is your work is not very static. You get to deal on pieces of problems that are very unique. You get to work with industries, different set of industries. And again, for someone who's starting his or her career, I think this is one of the major plus points of consulting. I mean, you might look into some of the other domains, get a stronghold in, let's say, one or two particular niches. But essentially, with consulting, you get to explore the overall market in your very first 2 years. And then you can take a call if consulting is right for you or if you want to switch to some other industry. But you can take a very, very calculated call. Talking about consulting again, because this requires you to put in a lot of hours. This requires you to manage people, manage yourself, And I think that was something I was really good at, and which is why this profile clicked to me. Yeah.
Uh, Thank you.
So moving on to the next question. What are the skills and experiences that you think are essential when it comes to a consulting profile? Or Kudeep, would you like to take this one?
Sure. Yeah. So let me break it down into two sections. One with respect to the skill sets required during the time of selection, and two with respect to the skill sets that you require once you're at job, right? So talking about the skill sets that you require prior to the job, I mean, basically at the time of selection is you should have a very structured approach to things. I mean, a major section where people evaluate you is on your case solving skill. Once you get a shortlist, that is, I mean, that is essentially everything that you need to go for in a consulting interview. So what they essentially look for is how well you can structure your thoughts, how well you can communicate them, and the type of deep dive that you can take, let's say on an industry level, or let's say on a particular problem level. So that depth of thought is what exactly is needed at that particular level. Well, talking about the things that you require once you're on job, in terms of skills, let's say, see again, a lot of what you do is a part of, let's say, a bigger picture of the smaller part of an analysis. Again, for analysis, there are particular tools which are very specific and subjective to the matter of problem. So you should have an acumen of, let's say, business sense. You should have stronghold analytic skills. That is what I think is required. Apart from that, you should be prepared to clock in the hours that is required here.
And
All right, and yes, please continue.
uh, did you catch the question?
Yeah, I got it. I think Pradeep, like Orkodeep, like covered like most of it, and obviously, like essentials, you need to know how to solve a case. You need to understand how businesses work, different industries work. I mean, it's not a prerequisite for you to know how every industry works, but I think you should have a general notion of how like businesses operate, how companies make money, how ideas can be monetized. I think stuff like that. With respect to experiences, I think majorly the experiences that would be required from you guys when you are like trying to get into consult is basically you handling organizations, you navigating like conversations between like different organizations, maybe managing people. uh yeah, I think like majorly managing people, like understanding conversations, navigating conversations between like cross functional teams, maybe. And yeah, obviously if you have good like strategy experiences, if you have worked on pieces which involve you making a strategy or like understanding a strategy or doing an analysis for any operation, I think that is something which helps as an experience. Yeah, so like
So,
majorly that's it. Yeah, you
so
have a
how do
follow-up?
you build such experiences and those skill set, those particular skills, like analysis, problem understanding, etc.?
Right. I think some part of it comes thoda sa intuitively, but like majorly it's practice. You go ahead, you practice. You go ahead and you do some like internships, maybe you do some projects which involve all these skills. So you don't learn it on a like a superficial basis by reading it. You actually have to exercise it in order to grasp ki haan, like this is how it's done. Right? This is how an analysis is done. This is how you read like between the lines. This is how you break down problems. This is how you solve problems. So it's more on the practice end. If you just take an initiative, if you try to like learn it, practice it enough, I think you can like develop it like
Correct. Thank you so much.
right.
So moving on, consulting is generally considered like hand in hand with a lot of positions of responsibility. So what are your thoughts on that? And do they actually matter that much?
Manas, would you like to go ahead?
Right. I'll take this up. As I said that, it requires the consulting work requires you to like navigate relations between like cross-functional teams and all. So let's just say if you have a POR in college, you are navigating conversations between your team. You are navigating conversations between the admin or like Gymkhana, just to like put it as an example. So right. So a POR in all essence is an implication that you can lead an organization, you can manage people, you can deal with your own team and external committees which are like responsible for the functioning of your society or the organization that you're leading. So being an like executive head or leading an organization like implies certain qualities which are obviously like essential for you to bring it into consulting. So I think it is like a major aspect of you qualifying as a candidate. If you have led an organization or build an organization for that matter, it doesn't have to be a position of responsibility in a college organization itself. If you have shown skills of leadership, if you have shown initiatives of leading an organization and navigating conversations, I think like it's going to reflect better on your profile, and like it is important. Like in my opinion, it's like really necessary for you to have that kind of a skill set and like show that kind of a skill set. Orko, if you have something to add.
Again, I also completely agree with Manas. See, I mean, when a third party looks at you, I mean, there's no direct way of checking if you are good at work, if you are good at leading people at a college level. And POR, I mean, makes the job quite easy because this is kind of a narrative of you putting in efforts, going till the top. I mean, making some really good relations. You know how to manage your relations with people. You know how to put in long hours for something that might be not so important or probably not so interesting. And probably on a day-to-day basis, in the job of a consultant, you will come across things like these. So essentially, having a POR kind of justifies that you are probably capable for this work. Again, this is important, but it is not the case that having a very good POR is a mandate. I mean, there are aspects to focus on. There are things called as spikes in a particular consulting CV. So if you do not have a very, very strong POR, I mean, that is again not a thing to worry. You can at least focus on the other aspects of it. But yes, given, I mean, that POR in itself is kind of important because, again, as I was saying, this reflects that you have the necessary skill sets. I mean, the rest can be developed. I mean, analytical skills can be developed. I mean, a lot of the other skills, let's say application to a particular software or the ease of accessing some other tool can be developed, but this is one thing that is an inherent thing. So I think for that reason, PORs are quite important.
Could you go into more depth about, as in, what were your PORs, or explain it in the case of KGP?
See, I mean, again, there's no good or bad POR as such. Uh, you get to experience
Of
different types
course.
of work. You get to experience different things on different levels. Talking about my involvements here, I was a part of CDC as a student placement coordinator, and I also served there as a departmental representative. Apart from that, I was also a part of ESL. I was a general secretary at my hall. I was also there in Share for a year, and I was also a part of Druhin. So these were some of the things I was into, and apart from that, I was also a part of the finance club at IIT Kharagpur.
All right.
Right. Like just would like to add a like little bit of comparison here in terms of like importance of position of responsibility. If you compare Orkodeep's PORs with mine, the impact that his PORs can bring in are like significantly better than mine, right? So I was the governor of Prava. I would not say it's a bad POR. It's a really good POR, really interesting work that we do here. But if you compare it with like Orkodeep's POR, the impact that he could have created being in that position can be like significantly better, right? But the essence here is you being able to lead an organization, you being able to navigate conversations. That is what. Just to put it out there, so that like people who do not have like 4 5 PORs do not get like disheartened and be like I'm like really back in the race. But I mean the point that matters is your overall profile. But like having a POR helps.
And what about if someone, what are the other things that can compensate? Like, I mean, if someone has less PORs.
Right. So there is no like replacement for a specific thing, right? If you look at it, so if you compare all the profiles that got internships and like consulting, they would all be very different. If you look at Arkadip's profile, if you look at my profile, they are way apart, right? So it is not about a replacement for a specific thing. It's about the combination of things that you put on your CV, right? I might not have a like 3 PORs or very impactful PORs, right? But I might have something that goes with my POR, which adds more impact. So the storyline needs to make sense. The combination of things that you put on your CV has to make sense. And an overall impact is created when you see all the things which are on your CV and they align well. That is it.
Again,
If
adding on to that, Manas was talking about the storyline that your CV shows to, I mean, people seeing it. There are certain aspects in your CV where you can focus on. I mean, as again I said, there are spikes that people usually look for in a consulting CV. The spikes can be, I mean, academic spikes. You can do really well in, let's say, your academics. You can do really well in Olympiads. You might be having publications with yourself, right? You might be doing really good in some competitive examination. That is an academic spike. You can be really good at your work ex. You might be having some really good brand interns or probably very impactful roles in whatever organizations you have served. Well, POR, of course, is one of the good things to have. You can be really, really good in your extracurricular activities. You might be having, let's say, achievements at the international or let's say at the national level. You might be having a very, very unique skill set that no one has. You can ask Manas. He has some really good niches on the extracurricular front, which I'm pretty sure people do not have in general. Apart from that, you can also, I mean, do really well in some entrepreneurial activities or competitions, right? So these are some things that you can also focus on apart from the PORs. Not that, I mean, there is something to compensate for it, but it is just that you need an overall profile that goes well.
Okay. Thank you for your answers.
Olgadeep, I think you just mentioned about entrepreneurial activities. Can you please brief us more about that?
Right. I mean, if you're doing something creative, if you're doing something innovative, that is, I think, any day a requirement for a consulting firm. I mean, the very basic and the most important thing to do in a consulting job is to innovate. So if you have demonstrated your skill set in this particular aspect, it really shows that you know about the bigger picture. You have seen a lot of the aspects that a business will go through, right? Apart from that, I mean, it's not a mandate to have an entrepreneur real experience or something of that sort, but it is just that if you have done this particular job, you probably have an expertise on a lot of things that will be required on your day-to-day job.
Okay,
Uh,
that's great.
yeah. So could you explain more about the academic spike?
Manas, would you like to take that up?
So when you say academic spike, I think it might it can be like a good CG maybe. If you have a good CG, if you are top 5 in your department, that could be a spike. If you are a DR 1, 2, 3, that could be a spike. If you're talking about CG, if you have done maybe like NTSC, if you're NTSC qualified, if you're KVPY qualified, or some any other Olympiad for that matter, right? Or maybe if you have cracked some exams or national level, some certifications that you have that are difficult to crack. In all essence, when an academic spike can be anything where you have shown that you have cracked something on a very competitive level, right? If you get a good CG, like if you are the DR1, you have you have had competition in your department and you have excelled. You have performed way better than everyone else, right? So that is a spike. That can be considered as a spike. If you have cleared NTSC, if you have cleared KVPI, that is a spike because you have performed well in a competitive environment. If you've cracked an exam, so I think mostly that.
Okay. So moving on.
Right. So, Manas, you mentioned that a combination of things is what makes one for consult. So, how should one prepare for a consulting and create such a unique blend?
Right. So I think the preparation involves a lot of things. So obviously the preparation involves you doing cases, you doing case preps. It involves you prepping yourself for behavioral questions, HR questions. It involves you building a good CV. And I cannot emphasize enough on building a good CV because making a CV is a very strategic thing that you need to do. You need to be sure of what you want to put on your CV and also what to not put on your CV, right? Because the storyline is very important when it comes to consult. So it has like it is said that whenever, and it's very like logical, whenever someone looks at your CV, they're going to go from top to bottom and from left to right. So you just make your CV in a way that looks impressive enough when they start. So let's just say you have a section, if you have an internships ka section, and you think that is not my best, my best section, or that is not as impressive as it should be, right? So you don't put it on the top, right? You put it somewhere in the bottom and you start with maybe like projects or maybe publications or maybe, academic achievements, right? Because they'll start looking at your CV from top to bottom. And obviously, when you put forth your work in your CV, it has to reflect impact. It has to reflect what you have done, because people don't have a lot of time reading CVs, right? They get like 700, 800 CVs. They won't be just sitting there and reading every CVs, right? It's a very like fast screening process in general. So making a good CV and to know what to put there and not is like really important. So yeah, and like in the general process for making CV is you make a draft, you make a list of everything that you've done, and like you send it to seniors, you ask for their feedback, reiterate it like multiple times, and that is how you like build your CV and whatever, like incorporate the inputs that they give and like reiterate it again and again with respect to like CV building. If Orkut, if you want to add something on that, but
Right. So as Manas was saying, the CV that you make for your consulting profile is very, very strategic. And in fact, the consulting CV in itself is a thing. I mean, it's very, very different from probably some of the other profiles where you have a CV. And let me just put it this way. The usual time, probably a selector, a recruiter, let's say, looks at your CV in consulting is 5 to 10 seconds, right? It doesn't take more than that. So your CV needs to be loud enough to tell the recruiter that yes, I am the one to look forward to. So you need to have things written in a manner that in a span of 5 to 10 seconds, they are impressed, right? As again Manas was saying, the CV is read on a top to bottom kind of thing and a left to right kind of thing. So it is always strategic to have the best parts on the very top of your CV, right? And again, uh, the CV in a consulting profile is again impact driven. So it is better to have your impact numbers towards the left side of your CV so that they can be read quite easily. And it is also important to highlight your impact so that anyone looking at it gets to know a gist of what you have been doing, right? Again, you can follow a star approach where you generally talk about the storytelling of what exactly was the experience like, right? You talk about the situation you were put into, you talk about your measures, you talk about the actions and the final result. The end goal is to check how much impact you have delivered on a particular task that was assigned to you, right? So yeah, I think that is more or less about the consulting CV. Talking about the preparation for a consulting role, uh, again, this is majorly divided into two factors. One, the CV preparation. Two, the case preparation. And the major part of this, let's say, is again a timeline-based thing where you prepare for your CV in the earlier days, get it checked from your seniors, and refine on your content. Alongside, you also form case groups where you, I mean, take up cases on a regular basis from different industries, different problem statements. And I mean, that is how it is.
All right. So, what are some resources that you can suggest for our reference?
right, I mean,
Right.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, sure. All right. So, talking about CV preparation, reach out to people who are currently working. I mean, your seniors who are currently interning or probably plus one or two from yours who probably landed a job there, they would be able to guide you better on how the CV should look like. Talking about the case preparation, you can start with the case interview cracks playlist, which is on YouTube. It is a 5 video series which will give you a brief about the type of cases that you might see during an internship phase, right? Then it is essential to form a case group where you can have a lot of sources. I mean, the general popular ones are the I am Ahmedabad case book, the IIT Bombay casebook. There are casebooks from SRCC, LSR, and whatnot. You can also refer this source, Look Over My Shoulders by Victor Cheng, right? The essential part here is to develop that sense as you practice cases, right? Do not read out cases.
Right.
Of course, you can do that once or twice while you're starting just to get a gist of how it works. But don't waste your cases. You will find different insights, you will find different ways of driving the case once you practice with people, right? So it is, I mean, again, subjective to the amount of time you'd like to dedicate here. It is always suggested that you do like some cases on a daily basis, and then you put a major chunk of your time on analyzing the cases, looking for alternative solutions, looking for ways where you could have gone right, where probably you took a very wrong turn. So that is how it goes.
All right. That was really extensive and insightful. Thank you.
So now could you walk us through the basic selection process of for a consulting role, and what are the different rounds and the sort of questions asked? Manas, would you like to begin?
Yeah, I can start. I think it's slightly like different for like every other company that comes. Like I'll tell you for McKinsey, and I think like Orkudeep can take it up for like BCG and all. So for McKinsey, obviously the first process is a CV shortlisting. You apply and your CV gets shortlisted. Once you're shortlisted, you have to give a you have to give a test, which is basically a gamified game solve test, where you basically have an ecosystem. You have to design an ecosystem by selecting like the altitude, the temperature, and some species there, and create a sustainable ecosystem there. So that is what basically like the test is. And there's a second part to the test, which is basically quant driven. You have to do some analysis, some numbers, and some basic calculations. It's not very difficult, but yeah, this is a test. And I think like on the basis of the test, they evaluate what are your strong points, where you do good and where you don't. And I think like in the interview, they try to test you on the parts where you did not do good in the test, right? And after the game, there's obviously like the interviews on like day one. So that is what the process for McKinsey is.
All right. Talking about the process at BCG, I mean, on the basis of your CVs, you get an initial round of shortlist, right? Post which you're allotted two buddies, one being your primary buddy, who is probably new to the firm and is probably very close to you, right? And a senior buddy who would be able to help you better with your doubts that are very, very specific to the firm and the type of work they do. So it is very important that you gel well with your buddies. Try to gain as much help you can from them. Uh, Again, buddy rounds are non-evaluative, but again, it is very, very important that you do not just mess up in front of them. Be prepared before you say something. Prepared before, let's say, you have a case with them. They are the ones who will guide you well on the type of preparation, on your weak points, on your strong points, things to focus, right? So keep the process very transparent with them. Once you're done with that, there are several rounds of screenings, which are generally hierarchical, where initially you probably have a managerial round being you probably have a case round with a manager at the firm. Then probably you will have a round with a partner, and then I mean followed by that you'd probably have a round with an MDP or an MDSP. And there are pointers that they usually follow. And on the basis of rounds, they can be again the scores can be cumulative or again on a basis of eliminatory scenario, depending on the rounds of that particular session. But yes, that is more or less it. I mean, basis on the scores that you usually receive in each and every rounds on the number of reads that you have, you land up an offer.
Yeah, so just adding on to the buddy rounds being non-evaluative. So I can like say for a fact that like buddy rounds at McKinsey are non-evaluative because I did really, really bad in my buddy round. But obviously, you can be very transparent with when you know what you lack at with your buddies, and try to take as much as help from your buddies because obviously they have experience and they can guide you like throughout the process and they can help you with anything that is required in the process. So be very transparent with your buddy, and obviously, I mean, be prepared and like show growth whenever you're talking to them. on a like recurring basis. That's it.
Manas, the test that you talked about seems very abstract, like creating a ecosystem. So how exactly do you prep for it?
So, I mean, you don't prep for it because there's no way you can prep for it, right? I mean, you don't have a similar type of a setup that is available publicly for you to go ahead and practice it, right? So it's just about, doing an analysis on how you can create a food chain. It's a basic problem that you need to have, like branches. You need to have like some organization, like some organism which feeds all, some organism which gets fed and then feeds on something, and maybe like then some organize. So you have to basically make a tree. I mean, that is what like majorly problem solving is. You just like break it down into multiple parts and then you solve for each part. I think it's not a very difficult test, so as to say. You just have to like use your presence of mind and just do it and on the go.
Okay.
Right.
And in these interview rounds and tests, how are communication skills weighted? Like,
I
are
mean,
they
I
really
would
important?
like definitely. I think communication skill is really important, and how you put forth your personality and how you establish your personality in the interview is really important, because I'm pretty sure whoever gets in has like done the case well. What makes you stand out is your personality and how you represent yourself. So you have to be like the best presentation of yourself in the interview with respect to your communication, with respect to your personality, and obviously you have to solve the case good.
Okay.
And like especially in McKinsey, I think the first 15 minutes is spent on, talking about yourself, talking about your experiences and your CV. And then they give you a case that you have to solve. So it starts with a introductory session. I think they make you a little bit like comfortable and talk about your experiences, which you are like confident in, because obviously you have made your CV, you have done the job. So that is your niche, right? So I think they start with 15 minutes of a conversation about you, getting to know you better, and then they give you a case. So that is how the interview is like for McKinsey.
Uh, thank you for your answer, and I will be moving on to the next question.
So, coming to the next question, what is the ideal CG for the role of a consultant? I believe this is one of the most important questions today. Right. Arkadeep, would you like to
So
answer?
there's no ideal CGPA as such, right? But again, I mean, just from the recruiter's perspective, there are like thousands of CVs that they're receiving, right? And it becomes really, really tough to go through each and every CV. So that is probably one of the filters that they apply to make their job easier. Not that there aren't people with lower CGs who are probably good at this. It is just that it becomes easier for them to put an initial metric, right? So it is generally good to have a CGPA that's probably higher than your batch's average. I mean, that being the minimum requirement, in my opinion. A very, very good CGPA showing your academic rigor and showing that you're really, really competitive on the academic front is really good to have a spike in that. However, I mean, it is advisable that you have a decent enough CGPA, but there's no cutoff as such.
Right. So, Manas, would you like to add something to this?
Bhai, I literally don't know. Okay, this is as honest I can get. I don't know what the ideal CGPA is, but obviously it depends upon the cohort, as like Arkadeep said. It depends upon the people who are applying, right? Because they have to put a filter before they start shortlisting CVs, right? They can't just go through every other CV, right? Because there is no specific cutoff that they mention officially. I'm pretty sure, like internally, they filter it out. Like they put a filter. They look for like 400 CVs. They put a eight plus CGPA filter, or maybe 8.5 plus CGPA filter, and then they look at if you filter it from 8.5 and they get 200 CVs and they get 30 decent CVs. I'm pretty sure they're not going to look at other CVs, right? So if they can get candidates who have scored more than like 8.5 plus in their academic journey and also have the relevant experiences, I don't think they're going to drill down beyond that. So it majorly depends upon the cohort. And obviously, as Orca said, it's more of you can think of it as a recruiter's mindset key. How would they approach it, right? So there's no ideal CGPA, but obviously, I mean, keep it 8 plus at least.
Right.
And
Okay. And Arkadeep, you mentioned that you should know the average batch CG. So, is there a particular number statistically, or do we just have to ask our friends?
You will just get a sense of, what the average looks like around you, but just by talking to people. You need not have a very analytical piece in hand. And I'm pretty sure if things run fine, you will never get that data as well. It is just good to have a sense. And it would be better if you don't fall in a situation where you're comparing your CG with the average of the cohort. It would be better if you are much above that on any given day.
Right. So, does it matter if I have a circle branch or not with respect to my
See,
academics?
Manas is from mechanical, I'm from electrical, and we are both into consulting. I think that really answers your question. And that is one of the best things about consulting. There's no cap on departments or degrees. They just want people who are really, really innovative. And innovation can come from anyone, from any department. And that is essentially what consulting is all about. So there's no bias in department. And again, there's nothing like a circuital or a non-circuital benefit when it comes to consulting.
Thank you for that. So, would you like to suggest something that students can do if their CGPA is not up to the mark? Manu, Aukari?
Hi, I'm telling you. Okay, I mean, again, right? So your like CG might be, lesser than like other people. So it's more your CGPA is more about your CV being addressed and seen by the recruiter, right? If your CG is not cutting it, there is a possibility the recruiter might not look at your CV because उसके सामने वो CV जाएगी ही नहीं, right? Because they are going to put a filter out, right? But if you, it's not going to be a huge problem if your CG is not up to the mark. But if your profile, so if your CG is low, but if you can show that you have like you have a publication, right? Or if you can show that you have certain, like you have cracked certain examinations, like you have certain certifications like CFA, FRM, right? Or you've done some publication. Right? So there has to be an alternative to like implicate that you are academically smart, right? A higher CG means that you're academically smart. If you don't have a ideal CGPA, you'll have to have something that implicates the same thing. So that is what essentially I would advise, but I mean, you never know.
Got it. Thank you so much.
So moving on. So since consulting is a very heavily wanted profile, what is something that someone should do that is not that if they do not manage to bag a consulting intern, what is a backup they should have?
Uh,
Um,
I would like to take this forward. Again, that is completely up to you. मतलब it's not the case कि मुझे consult जाना है and I do not get an intern from CDC, so I just switch my profile. If you think consult is what you're made for it. You look for alternative sources, you look for alternative job roles which are probably driven towards strategy or probably other means of getting into it, or probably you look for a bigger picture when you target this again during your placements. If you think consult is what you want for yourself, then just go for it. If you think there are things that you're really good at and would like to take a switch and you're fine with it, then of course, you can keep that as a backup. And when I say backup, it completely is on your interest level. Let's say you really love product, you can go for that profile. Let's say you really love finance, you can go for that profile. Let's say you really are a tech guy, you can probably again keep software as your backup. And honestly, people at Consult, they have really, really diverse sets of backgrounds. There's no fixed profile as such that people in Consult come from. That is really diverse. And again, the backup profile that people usually keep, for at least people who keep a backup profile, that can again be completely on their expertise and interests. So I don't think there's any ideal alternative profile as such.
Thank you for your answer. Manas, any add-ons?
I mean, yeah, exactly. Like whatever alternative profiles you like look for backup is something that you should have certain like inclination to, right? I mean, it might vary from like person to person, wherever their interest lies in, right? But I would say, I mean, for CDC itself, I think you should like look at it as an opportunity to explore, right? If you like fixate a little early on what you want to do, I think you are killing the innocence. So I would just recommend to not get into ki yaar yahi karna hai and I need to get a good intern, I need to get a PPO, I need to get a job. So that is something that I would like definitely not recommend. But I would say if there is something that you can do, if you have the capability to do, if you get finance intuitively, if you get consult intuitively, if you get data like intuitively, right? Go ahead with the best opportunity that CTC has to offer. Do not fixate on key I want to do consulting and I'll only do consulting, right? If you get a good consulting intern, well and good. If you get a good data intern, well and good. Any intern that you get is like actually going to add up to your learning experience, right? Wherever you work, if you work at a good firm in any domain, that experience is going to be exciting, that experience is going to be enriching. And obviously, yeah, post that you can decide if this is something that you want for yourself or not, and then maybe like sit for placements and choose a role that actually excites you and you want to work in that domain. I think you should approach it from this angle, according to me.
Thank you for your answer. Moving on to the next question.
Right. So they say that mistakes are the best teachers. What mistakes do you think you have made during your intern season, or what things do you realize now that you could have done better? Or Kudeep, would you like to take this one first?
Yeah, definitely. Right. So, one of the key mistakes people do is they read out a lot of cases. They hesitate to reach out to people. They feel that they are doing fine, but honestly, they're not doing fine at that situation. It will cost you at a later stage, right? So, the major part of a consulting job in itself is interacting with a lot of people. And if you are lacking that skill, then probably, if not today, you will probably fail. Not fail, I mean, that's a very heavy word. You will probably not be fit, or you would not like your work as a consultant, right? Reach out to as many people as you can. People generally shy away from that. Uh, Make case groups, nudge your buddies, uh, take their schedules, align them with yours, make some time, sit together, do cases on a regular basis. You might have a lot of groups, you might have a lot of prep buddies, involve them into this. Try different types of cases. I see a lot of people. Uh, at times, the objective gets transferred to यार मुझे अच्छा दिखाना है कि यार मैं अच्छा कर रहा हूँ, more than कि यार मैं गलती कर लेता हूँ but I learn, right? So there are people who probably want to overperform in front of their friends and they make a stronghold in a particular type of case and they want to practice on that. But that is not ideal, right? You need to turn your
Exactly.
weaknesses into your strengths because you do not know what type of a case, what industry you will get during your final interview. It's fine to show that you're not doing well, but what is not fine is not improving yourself. Try out different type of cases, even if that experience is very embarrassing, even if your first impression for someone is really, really bad, right? Try out things, reach out to people, get advices, implement them. I think that is one of the major mistakes that people don't do. Talking again about a very specific incident that I feel a lot of people who are preparing will feel or probably have already felt that. Uh, it becomes really, really tough at times when you are probably lost in a case and you do not know how to get away with it. You shoot random questions, you shoot questions that are directionless, or probably you make a very huge communication gap where you are thinking something, but the one who is listening is probably out of the case by then, right? So, again, it is very, very important to have your thoughts structured, to have the communication line on, right? You can think through a lot of things. And again, that comes from a lot of practice. The more you practice, the better you get at it. But again, it is very, very important that you keep the communication flow on. And apart from that, one major mistake I feel people do is they fixate on things. Let's say profitability का case है. They look at the framework, they memorize it. Here आएगा, I'll break it down into this bucket, and then I'll proceed. Each and every case in itself is very unique. You can have a very, a very brief skeleton in mind, but your storyline should not be framed on a skeleton. Again, you can have a storyline in mind. You might need a skeleton to execute that. Make it ad hoc, right? So do not fixate कि यार इस तरह से अगर revenue में break करूंगा ये करूंगा तो हो जाएगा. Every case in itself is very very unique. Try to take a deep dive on the case and then proceed with a way to solve it. So I think these are some of the things that people need to focus on. Manas would like to take this forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's like really crucial what like Arkadip says, because I mean, there's no way you can quantify your progress, right? I mean, even like if you are like coding, maybe let's just say if you're coding, you can see what like rating of problems you're getting done, right? What is your rating on a certain platform, and you can quantify the progress that you're doing. But when you're preparing for consult, there's no like quantification of the progress that you're making. So it's always recommended to practice more and more, because again, you never know like what problem you are going to get in the interview, right? So leverage all your buddies, leverage all your friends, and practice as much as possible, right? And I think Arkodik focused on customizing your own frameworks, right? Don't be fixated on your frameworks. Again, that again implies that you need to practice. You need to practice again and again, and you need to practice more, and then you need to analyze कि हम गलती कहाँ पे कर रहे हैं, right? So if you have enough practice, if you have enough exposure, you'll know the trick, because it's a trick. In the end, it's a trick. You need to customize with respect to the industry. You need to customize with respect to whatever framework that you're using, right? And with respect to the industry, with respect to the revenue streams, whatever, there isn't the problem. So that comes with enough practice. So yeah, and apart from that, I would say don't like put all your eggs in one basket. That is what I think I personally did, because I prepped for consult a lot, and my backup profile was finance because I have a specialization in financial engineering. So I was prepping for finance, but for some reason I couldn't give much time to my preparation, right? And I was not able to prep like significant, because I knew that finance interviews I'm not going to clear because I was not at par with respect to my skill set. And if I had not gotten an internship in the consulting domain, I would not have a good internship, right? And I had to wait for like other companies to come, right? Because there are limited opportunities in consulting domain. So I would say always have a plan B, always have a safety net, and always prepare for multiple profiles to the same extent, right? Because it's a game of luck. After a point, it's a game of luck. Even if you do the best thing, even if you give the best interview, even if you solve the case in the best way possible, there is a possibility that you might get chucked out. There's a possibility you might not get the internship. So yeah, just have backup. That's it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This was really extensive. The next question.
So what is a specific advice you would give to someone aspiring for your companies? Manas for McKinsey.
I mean, it's not very different with respect to the company. I mean, obviously the evaluation process is somewhere like tweaked up and down with respect to like different firms. But like in all essence, you need to know how to solve problems. You need to have good problem solving skills. You need to have good case solving skills. You need to know how to be messy. You need to know how to communicate top down. You need to know how to be structured in your communication. And obviously your personality, you need to know why do you want to do consulting, right? You need to actually understand what is your reason for you to get into consulting, and that has to be genuine, right? Because if you bullshit in front of the interviewer, he would know that you're bullshitting because he's a better bullshitter than you, right? So you actually need to know why do you want to do this, and you actually need to prep. Like, and in the same, I think it aligns for every like consulting firm. You need to know how to do cases, and you need to know how to communicate. That's it.
Or Kudeep, would you like to add something?
Right. Again, I mean, as Manas said, there's no specific, I mean, there are specific company advices as such, but the gist of it remains the same. I mean, if you want to be a problem solver, if you want to be someone to innovate, if you want to be someone to work with top level executives, consulting is the place for you. Places might be different. I mean, McKinsey, BCG, Bain, LEK, Accenture, some other firm, places might be different, but more or less the job stays the same. you will get to work in different practice areas, and I think that is case with all the firms. Again, the number of cases inclined towards a particular section might be different. The hierarchy of the firm, the pace at which you grow, that again might be different. But talking about people aspiring to be at BCG or I mean McKinsey, I don't think that's very, very specific as such. Uh, be good at solving cases at this level. Be a fun person. I mean, ये नहीं कि मस्ती करो, joke मारो, but at least be a person someone would like to have around. You know, have a good personality. I think that is it.
Yeah, so just to put out an instance there. So when I entered the panel for my interview at McKinsey, the first thing that the interviewer told me that, hey man, you've got a nice suit there, right? And I mean, I was like caught off guard a little. I did not know what to say, but I just like replied back, I mean, it's a big day for me. I'm like interviewing for McKinsey, so I have to bring in the A game. You look fresh nonetheless, as you said to me that I look fresh nonetheless, right? So you just need to know like how to put yourself in those situations and how you represent yourself in those situations. So I think that gets you brownie points. As I said, cases to sab acha solve karenge yaar. Whoever is going to get in, they know how to do cases. So you need to have this kind of a thing to set yourself apart.
See, again, I mean, the one who is interviewing you might have had a very rough day. क्या पता लड़ाई करके आया हो. Probably he slept for an hour before coming to the firm and interviewing you. You never know how that person is, right? Be a good person. Be fun to be with. He always keep a smile on your face. That is the least that you can do. And apart from that, I mean, be yourself. I mean, you need not frame yourself into someone that you are not just to please someone. But again, I mean, be yourself and be a good person. That's it in that particular sense.
I mean, Manas, you said that you wanted to do consulting. Why is it that consulting intrigued you?
Again, so yeah, that is so my approach to it was that I like problem solving, and I always like wanted to know like which is the domain which is going to offer me continuous learning, right? So if I got into data, there would be some saturation after a point, right? I know all the algorithms now. I know how to code. Maybe I know how to implement certain models, right? If I do coding, it's going to be the same. It's if I do finance, I think it might be something which is giving me, like enriching me with some knowledge, giving me good experiences now and then. So I think consulting is something that I saw as an opportunity to go ahead and learn about different industries. And I, for now, was not ready to fixate on a specialized job, right? So consulting is not a specialized job. It's a generalized job, right? So you go ahead, you work in different industries for like 5 months, and then you hop onto a different industry, and then you get context, you learn about that industry and solve the problems that there are, right? So I was more into getting into a generalized role and then fixate on something that is a specialized role after gaining some experience in that particular domain and understanding how that industry works.
Or Kudeep, what about you?
Yeah, as I answered in the very beginning, uh, see, talking about consulting, I mean, as Manas also said, there's no saturation. I mean, every day you get a new challenge. Every day you think on a new piece. Every day you try to solve a problem that is probably troubling the company for years, right? So that is the magnitude of problem that you are dealing with. And it requires a fresh approach. It requires you to actually think through. ये नहीं हो रहा कि यार you go there, कोई system चालू कर दिया, you do the same thing every day. Not that I'm pointing out on some sector, but I mean that is probably a job a lot of people do, and to me that didn't seem very sustainable over a long period of time, right? If there isn't a kick in the job, then probably I will not be able to sustain that for my lifestyle. Again, I mean, just because you're getting an intern, that doesn't mean you fixate this as a profile that you will be looking at. The exact reason of getting an intern is to get exposure more than you trying to get a PPO. I think it's more important that you try to see if consult is the thing for you. Try to explore if, I mean, people who are there for a long time are really working the way you are planning to work, if they are able to sustain the lifestyle that you are planning to do, if the work is actually, uh, I mean, if the work is really nice, if the work is something that you'd like to take on for years, this is really a good opportunity to test on that.
All right. So for the next question, Now, everybody over here knows that your companies are very, very well reputed, and we are all intrigued by your work culture. Can you please tell us a bit about it and the type of work that both of you do? Manas, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I mean, like talking about the work culture, I think I really like it. So in like I'll start with the job roles, right? So there is a very like differentiation between the designation that you have in a company in consulting company and the role that you have in a case team, right? So your designation is very different than your role in the case team. So your case team involves just like two, three hierarchies. There is a director, there is a manager, and there are associates. So even though I'm an intern, I'm an associate on the case. So someone who's working there as a manager is can be a partner, can be a can be an engagement manager, anything, any designation he might have in the firm. But the role that he's going to play in the case team is to be a manager. So that is what like my role is. I'm working in like very similar trajectory to an associate. He goes to meet his own clients, I go to meet my own clients, I gather data from them, I like try to get insights. Obviously I get it reviewed by them, I get it reviewed by my supervisors, and then I present my work, and then the analysis is done. But I mean, it's the exposure that you get like in McKinsey is very like front desk and very like front end. You are actually out there trying to solve a problem, and you are giving like you are given the whole ownership of the problem. You will be assigned a problem, and then they will not like talk to you about anything. They'll just like expect a plan, and they'll expect you to go and like take initiative and solve it. You tell them what is required and what needs to be done, and then they'll help you with that. How do you achieve it? So a lot of ownership is given, and I think the work culture. I mean, the work hours are hectic. Hectic. Apart from that, I think the team always tries to have fun. The team always tries to go out to play some sports. My team specifically, a lot of people in my team like to play badminton, and once in a while they like plan an offsite where they go on a vacation when the work hours get a lot hectic. So yeah, I mean, like things like these happen once in a while to like cheer up the case team, and obviously when it gets very hectic for them to handle the work. I think that's all for now.
Pradeep?
Again, at BCG, the experience is quite similar to that of Manas. I mean, there are people who are divided into modules on a particular case. Module is basically a sub part of a very big problem, right? So again, I mean, the ownership that you get on problem is really, really massive. And again, within the team, there's a very, very flat hierarchy. I mean, even someone who's there for like 5 to 6 years would be operating at a similar level. If, let's say, there's some analysis where you find that there can be some improvement, you can directly tell that out. And that particular person, on most of the occasions, will also take that into consideration, even though you are just an intern, right? So the seniority, especially in consult, is not a thing that we ever feel. It's more about providing value to our customers over having internal conflicts of anything of that sort. Again, I mean, the job requires you to put in a lot of hours, clock in a lot of hours, which is why there are some things that get compromised, as in uh, the time that you get to enjoy otherwise, which again is compensated by people at the firm. They always joke around. I mean, they try to keep the whole environment very friendly for you to be there for the overall duration. And that is, I think, how it goes around in all the case teams. And apart from that, there are like case team outings where you plan events for weeks, you visit places with your team. You often go out on case team dinners. I mean, in my case, we take the lunch time as a time when we would not talk about work and talk about things that are fun. We have our lunches together. Apart from that, I mean, even during my very second week, we went on a karaoke night. And I mean, 2 days back, we had a work from office day where we were playing games at the office. We had a Sufi night. We even had a comedy show from Akash Gupta. So, all in all, just because the work in itself is very, very demanding and tiresome, there are things in the work itself to cool you down. I mean, you will enjoy the work definitely if you like the work. Of course, you are expected to deliver at a very, very high stake, but that being said, the work in itself is really, really fun because the people around you make this really fun, right? Talking about the work culture, I cannot emphasize enough on there being a flat hierarchy in terms of there are people in various seniorities. But again, I mean, my partner any day would listen to an advice that I have on a particular piece of case, right? That is the amount of ownership that you have and the type of authority that you have on a case. So I think that pretty much sums it up. Uh, Work hours are long, but people are really, really good.
That sounds really exciting. So I'd like to thank the both of you for this really informative session. I really believe that this would help out a lot of prospective consultants out there. So Janta, now we'll open the floor for questions. Please put your questions in the chat box. So we'll start answering. So the first question is, do top consulting firms hire students outside CDC, off campus?
See, talking about BCG, there is also a system of lateral entry, and people, I mean, get there at multiple stages. I mean, you can get an intern there, you can get a full-time offer post your college life. You can probably also take a B school route and get there. And again, as I said, lateral entry. So there are multiple avenues when you can be a part of this team. There are also some outside consultants who work with you. There are again multifunctional teams working together. At least in case of BCG, there's BCGX, there's Gamma, there's Platinum. There's are a lot of teams working together, right? So again, that being said, at an intern level, it is really tough to get to the firm outside of the CDC internships. Not that it's not possible, but again, emphasizing on the point, it is tough. And this is the ideal route that is usually looked for students in the target schools. And I mean, when I talk about target schools for interns, in most of the cases, these are the top IITs and the top IIMs in most of the cases.
All right. So can you please tell our audience some exact questions that you were asked in your interview? Manus would like to take this one.
I mean, like, so there's no point like of me sharing what exactly I was asked because it was very relevant to like my candidature and relevant to my profile, right? If I tell you I was asked, like, what did you do at Orangewood Labs? That is not going to help you. But like in all essence, I think you should be prepared with respect to what you put on your CV. I think you should know what your CV looks like. What have you put on your CV, and you need to be acquainted with all the work that you're doing. So sometimes it happens that you might have done an internship a year back, and you might not actually remember how exactly you did that. So it's better to prep your CV before your interviews. Have a basic set of behavioral questions practiced, HR questions practiced. Basic questions that are frequently asked, which is basically why consulting, why you, and what are the some like qualities that you have which aligns with consulting. What are your strength, weakness, like basic questions that you need to be acquainted with. I mean, this majorly helps you develop a thought process and majorly helps you introspect what you have, right? So it's important for you to go through these questions and obviously prep your CV and do cases. I think that is something that is going to be more helpful rather than me telling you what I was asked. So yeah, is that.
Right. Or Pradeep, would you like to add something?
See, in my opinion, these are things to, I mean, break the ice. They just want to keep the communication flow going and make you comfortable. That is why people usually have a conversation in your rounds. Also, I mean, just to know a bit more about you. I mean, apart from my CV and what I am, uh, in one of my BCG rounds, I had a very good conversation with one of the interviewers who happened to be from IT Delhi. We were talking a lot about the campus life, how this has changed, what are the things that are similar. In one of my rounds in McKinsey, uh, the interviewer asked me about my future goals, how he has been aligning with the firm, What are the key things? I mean, basically, conversations can range from anywhere to anything. They just want to test you on how well you're prepared on a day which is so important for you. If you can think beyond a particular thing, if I mean, more or less, it is just to make you comfortable and know a bit about you.
Got it. Thank you so much.
There's often said that there's a toxic culture in the consulting companies. I mean, you technically answered it, but still, is there any sort of similar truth on it?
Wait a second. When did we say that? We did not answer it.
No. Yeah, no, you did not say that.
Yeah, it's very good. The
I mean,
work culture is
it's
actually.
a rumor that's been around for a very long time.
I mean, obviously, you're expected to deliver, on time, and sometimes the work is so. It's the work is actually very challenging at times, and it takes a lot of time for you to do the analysis, think of something which is very creative, try to solve the problem, align it with the client. That is what they say, align. I've heard like align 120 times probably today itself from like my associates and managers. So you have to do a lot of things, and sometimes gets very hectic. And I think that is a price you pay for living in 5-star hotels and taking Vistara flights and getting a cab to pick you up. And so there are perks that is given to you just to make sure that you are the most comfortable when you're working for the firm. And obviously you have to meet deadlines, so there is that. It's not toxic, so as to say. You can say it's challenging and a little bit hectic. That's it. Orku.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I
Is
also
there
have a similar point on this as of Manas. I mean, again, the work is very, very challenging, and for that reason, it might feel toxic, although it is not. At least in my case, I have always had my team's back whenever I felt overwhelmed, right? So rumor to ये भी है कि that we only sell PPTs, which is not very, very true. Honestly speaking, as I was talking to, I didn't even touch a slide yet on my 3 weeks of internship. So yes, the work is challenging, but again, I mean, see, consult takes care of each and everything that you have in your life apart from work, so that you can completely deliver on your work, right? When there's a compromise on that aspect, that is probably something that needs to be rectified. Again, people are really, really supportive and constructive in giving you feedbacks so that you can constantly upscale yourself. And see, I'm not very sure why this is called so toxic, because I didn't feel it during my 3 weeks as of it. And as far as I have spoken to my co-interns, I don't think anyone is having an experience of that sort.
And in this selection process, is there any bias against dual degree students?
No, yeah, it's just that people might have more on their plates. That is it. Apart from that, I mean, of course, see, consulting firms also uh, requires people who are good at problem solving, and they look for a longer term goal, not यार एक साल में इसने ज़्यादा कर लिया, so let me just go for him or her, right? They look for the bigger picture, which is why it is also known by them कि यार probably if someone is a 4 year course guy, he or she might have done less because of the time he or she has spent on campus. So these things are also taken care of. End of the day, it depends on how well you perform, how well you do in your cases. But I don't think there's a direct bias or something of that sort. Levels are set accordingly.
Okay. And
That's
okay, what would be your advice on maintaining communication with the placecom? I mean, you're part of the placecom, so
Bro, they don't respond only, bro.
Is that the case, Manas?
Nah, man, nah. I mean, like, I don't like get your question. Like, what's like specifically your question was? I mean, obviously it's for Orkudeep, but I don't understand. Like, can you just reframe it in a better way?
it's by someone in the audience. So
Yeah, I think I get a sense of what the person is asking. Uh, I mean, how do you communicate with the platform on that particular day for your interview slots and all, right? So, I mean, again, it's a two-way thing. From the placecom wala part also, I mean, we also want people to sit for the interviews, right? We cannot keep the panels empty and all of that. So you also want to give an interview. Place comms also want you to get that interview done ASAP. And I mean, see, on my day of interview, more than being a place com, I was there as a candidate. I was getting constant calls from places, "Yeah, this interview is going on. You need to reach here. You need to reach here," and so on. So at that point, I felt, yeah, more than me thinking about myself, these people are the ones who are calling me for the interview. They are there for the sanctity of the process. Uh, and in fact, when let's say you're not able to catch communication, there's also internal communication between them. If you're stuck in a particular round, they will try to manage with the company so that you can get that interview done at some other point. I mean, be sympathetic with them. Try to cooperate as much as possible because they are there for you. वो वहाँ पे कोई और job पे नहीं बैठे हैं. They are there to get you that dream internship of yours. So, I mean, with respect to communication, I don't think there's a gap that they keep. In fact, from the student perspective, I think it becomes tough for the student to keep up with that. They always, I think, overperform in that particular sense in keeping you up with your interviews. And I think Manas would also be able to agree or disagree with that.
Uh, I mean, I will definitely like agree with that because obviously these people, like, you have to understand that like place comms are actually like swamped with work, right? They have too many things to do at the same point of time, right? And parallelly, like, go ahead and give interviews, also plan for their, like, work on their aspirations as well, right? Because apart from like handling other people's interviews, apart from talking to these people who have come here to take interviews, talking to these companies, and like navigating all the conversations, like, and like representing CDC itself, right? So it's a very hectic job. So at some point of time, you might not hear from a place com after texting, like, multiple times, but you just have to hang on there because I'm pretty sure if it's required, they'll show up. And most of the times they'll help you with whatever you need. You just have to give them a little bit of like space because there might be a problem that they are like solving for the institute. So I mean, just hang in there, ask for help, seek for help again and again, and they'll communicate to you whatever you need. I was like helped whenever it was needed, and most of my friends, everyone that I know, was like given support whenever they needed, even in the placements this semester as well, like last semester as well. So I mean, just be empathetic.
So another question that we have in the chat box is that what would be an ideal roadmap for a second year to prepare a strong CV? Like the different courses, internships. Or could would like to take this one?
Yeah, could you just repeat the question once again?
Right. So the question is, what would be a good roadmap for a second year trying to get into CV, trying to get into consulting? Can you please briefly
So,
discuss the courses, internships, and different domains?
right. So, as I was saying, there's no particular roadmap. कि यार ये 3 चीजें कर लो and you get a consulting intern. Again, the very important part is doing what you like and really excelling in it. I mean, the end goal is to deliver impact, and that will never be the case when you do something just for the sake of doing it. If you like to do specific things for the student community, get on those roles. If you, let's say, love a particular type of work, look for internships in that particular domain. If you are really enthusiastic about what you study, give your all in it, right? So the end goal is to maintain an overall profile. ऐसा नहीं कि एक ही चीज करे जा रहे हो, but there are certain things to look at and try to excel in as many of them as you can. Uh, I think there's also a question of additionally could product management serve as a good backup option? Definitely it can. Again, as I was saying, the specifics of consult is really, really flexible. As an if you let's say excelled in a product field or a finance field, you will get a shortlist. You can have a culmination of all of that and still have a really well-rounded CV for consult because recruiters in consult do not look for a specific work ex, they look for how well you deliver. If you are delivering well in product, of course you can have that as a backup option for yourself if you want to.
Understood. Thank you.
Um, so now we'll be ending the Q&A session. Thank you, panelists. It was a really insightful and informative event. Before we wrap up, is there any last-minute advice that we might have missed? So you might want to add on. Manas.
I mean, like, I would just, so it's easier said than done. I would like just ask people to not stress much about it, because like when I was preparing for CDC last year, I used to stress too much about the process. I used to stress too much about the results, and like even like Orkudeep knows this, and you know, so the point is, even if you stress about the outcome, it's not going to change, right? If you are like wondering whether I would get a shortlist or not, and if you're just wondering about it, stressing about it on a daily basis, that won't get you a shortlist, right? So you just have to keep calm. You just have to keep prepping. Use this as a opportunity to just learn a lot of things in a 3 months duration, because I mean obviously people try to give like almost all the time that they have in this summers to prep for like CDC and all. So just try to give most of your time to learn new skills, talk to a lot of people, ask for guidance and seek advice, and just like chill, stay calm, and don't be stressed. This is just a platform to explore. This is just an opportunity, add an opportunity. This doesn't reflect anything else. That's it.
Right. And even I feel that it is very, very important to have a very strong support system. Don't get very, very emotionally attached to the process. You might have days of ups, you might have days of downs, but if you're letting your days of downs or even the days of ups impact you to an extent that you cannot maximize on what you were supposed to do on that particular day, then I think that is a battle lost, right? The final output, as Manas said, is not something that's in your hand. I mean, you are there to represent yourself, you are there to do the case, you are there to do the best for yourself. But I mean, you may get the result, you may not get the result. Just by stressing on that, you cannot change the outcome. Again, there's no certainty that you will get what you want. And again, in that particular sense, it is not the end of the world, right? You can again give it a try in the next attempt, right? You can try for something else. So it is not the end of the world. And at the same time, it is advisable कि यार ऐसा नहीं करो कि I have some emotion, but let me be very, very strong, very strong. If you want to vent out, you can have a strong support system that will always pick you up from there on. Have a really, really good set of friends who would always be there for you no matter what. I mean, I think Manas and I can agree on this. We took people to Subway by the end of day one because not everyone gets the result they want. You might get what you wanted, you may not get what you want. But that is again not the end of the world, right?
Thank you. That was a lot to gain from those tips.
So once again, I would like to extend my congratulations to the both of you for securing such impressive internships. Thank you for your valuable time and for sharing your impactful insights despite your busy schedule. Your experiences and guidance will be undoubtedly incredibly beneficial to all of us. I would also like to thank our audience for participating and making this event interesting and interactive. You guys were great this evening.
Before we end, there's an important announcement. We will have a panel discussion on core profiles on the 7th of June. We'll be looking forward for all of you to tune in. Thank you, everyone. And thanks again, panelists. All the best for your future endeavors.